recipe. Poverty, drugs, child abuse, a few other things that I can't recall right now, but I believe that these things, you know, contribute to a person, to a person's frustration and anger, and at some point in life, he explodes.
This is our spooky presentation on Richard Ramirez. Richard Ramirez was a local serial killer whose childhood was deeply troubled. When it comes to the nature versus nurture debate, his life strongly points towards nurture. He grew up with 4 siblings in an abusive household where his father, Julian Ramirez, would regularly abuse them. A major negative influence was his cousin Miguel, a Vietnam War veteran who exposed him to graphic photos of murder, torture, and sexual violence that he committed. Along with multiple head injuries during childhood, these experiences likely had a serious impact on Ramirez's cognitive development. Overall, his upbringing was highly traumatic and played a significant role in shaping his later actions, and later shaping him into the Night Stalker.
During adulthood, Ramirez had lived in El Paso for 18 years up until he moved to California. During his time there, he committed crimes in the cities of Whittier, Los Angeles, Glassell Park, and Monterey Park. He also had a wife, Doreen Leoy. His occupations/activities included theft, which most of the times would lead to murders. He was also heavily addicted to drugs such as cocaine, and he considered himself a Satanist. He would isolate himself from others, but when he did interact with people, he was described as somewhat hostile. It was also noted that he had a really small temper with bad impulse control. His style was mainly sadistic, but he lacked empathy, and most of the time he was narcissistic. Teachers claimed he was a failing student, not one to interact at all, and would get bad grades. These descriptions enhance the understanding of Ramirez's personality because it informs us and helps us picture what kind of person he was and what kind of person he developed into.
Richard Ramirez exhibited multiple PCLR traits. The PCL, or psychopathy checklist. The checklist assesses levels of psychopathy in individuals with scores using a 3-point scale, with 20 items in total. The scale's scores are as follows. 0 scores indicate an item that does not apply. 1 indicates an item that somewhat applies, whilst a 2 indicates an item that applies fully. The maximum score on the scale is 40, and a score of 30 or more qualifies as psychopathy in the United States, with 25 qualifying as psychopathy in the United Kingdom. We believe that the most prominent scores that are essentially not up for debate in Richard Ramirez would be his criminal versatility, his impulsivity, his callous lack of empathy, and delusions of grandeur, which would all be 2. Criminal versatility indicates that somebody is able to commit multiple crimes. This was one of the factors that made capturing Richard Ramirez so difficult for law enforcement back in the 80s. There was no pattern to his crimes. There were evidence of excessive violence, sexual violence, and satanic imagery left behind at his crime scenes, which made it difficult to connect one murder in Glassell Park to another in Rosemead to another in San Francisco.
In addition to the PCLR, we wanted to use the Big 5 personality theory for this personality case analysis. Based on what we've learned about the Big 5 theory, we noticed a consistent pattern in Richard Ramirez. First, regarding openness, we believe that Ramirez would likely fall within the low to moderate range. Although he wasn't creative or imaginative in a positive way, research suggests that people with antisocial or psychopathic tendencies can still be open to extreme experiences, which is the case for Ramirez. In this case, his openness manifests in his willingness to engage in very extreme and violent behaviors. Next, we believe that he'd score very low on conscientiousness. Conscientiousness is associated with responsibility and organization or long-term planning, but Ramirez demonstrated very disorganized, impulsive behavior that lacked any signs of long-term planning. This aligns with research on the Big 5 theory, linking low conscientiousness to a tendency of irresponsibility and poor self-control, especially in people who are antisocial. As for extroversion, his traits are a bit mixed. Ramirez did show signs of social boldness and fearlessness, both of which are aspects of extroversion. With that being said, he lacked qualities like warmth and genuine social connection. Studies on psychopathy note that people can seem socially confident without being emotionally connected to others, which seems very fitting for Ramirez. We also believe that he'd score very low on agreeableness. Agreeableness is associated with compassion, empathy, and friendliness, all of which were very absent in Ramirez's behavior. Instead, he displayed the opposite. He was very manipulative, hostile, lacked empathy for his victims, and was extremely aggressive and violent, all of which are linked to very low agreeableness. Lastly, we believe that his neuroticism appears to be high. Neuroticism involves emotional instability, anxiety, and a struggle to regulate emotions. Ramirez displayed patterns of instability, paranoia, and anger, which suggest high levels of neuroticism, in spite of sometimes seeming in control and somewhat confident during some of his crimes. Overall, we think that this Big Five profile of low conscientiousness, very low agreeableness, mixed extroversion, low to moderate openness, and high neuroticism is very consistent with patterns observed in people with antisocial and psychopathic traits.
Richard Ramirez's case shows how extreme personalities can grow from trauma, learned behavior, and psychological vulnerability. His story highlights the lasting impact of childhood trauma and the importance of early psychological intervention. Even after his death, his case remains influential in showing how early intervention might help stop history from repeating itself. I do want to end this off on a high note. I want to inspire you from watching this to check up on your friends, your family, and even yourself if you are in a sad or dark place. It always helps to talk to someone.